So Oregon Supreme Court has blocked Measure 114's firearms purchase permit and magazine ban from going into effect. So let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think purchase permits and magazine bans are clearly a violation of the Second Amendment, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Kershaw Knives. Kershaw manufactures close to 1 million knives in their US factory every single year. Kershaw produces a broad range of knives to meet everyone's needs. You can get a $20 Walmart knife all the way up to a $200 US made automatic knife. And just recently, Kershaw dropped their new 2023 line. Kershaw is an amazing company. They have high quality, durable, and aesthetically pleasing knives. I highly recommend their knives. I use one every single day for my EDC. And right now, if you order through Kershaw Knives and use the code 20Scholar, you can get 20% off of your order. And you can also get free shipping on orders $100 or more. And that will last until May 1st. So go check out Kershaw Knives, use that code. And thank you again to Kershaw Knives for sponsoring this video. As I mentioned in the intro, in this video, we will be discussing a current challenge to Oregon Measure 114, which was originally set to go into effect on December 8th. This measure, which passed in the state of Oregon, creates a purchase permit that Oregon residents must have to be able to obtain and purchase a new firearm. And also this Oregon Measure 114 creates a ban on so-called large capacity magazines. In response to Measure 114, the state is now being sued in multiple cases. And the case we will be focusing on in this video is called Arnold v. Case. The Arnold case is a state lawsuit filed by Gun Owners of America, or GOA, and it challenges Oregon Measure 114 as a violation of the Oregon State Constitution. And recently, we actually received an order from the Oregon Supreme Court, which rejected the state of Oregon's attempt to bypass the trial court's TRO and also the trial court's preliminary injunction, which blocked the permit to purchase and also the magazine ban from going into effect. So this is a significant development. So I want to break this down for you guys so you understand the implications of what's going on. Now, for those not familiar with Oregon Measure 114, let me explain generally what it does. Measure 114 will first require that anyone purchasing a firearm must obtain a permit to purchase. To obtain the permit to purchase, the resident will need to complete a safety training course, go through a background check, get fingerprinted, show a valid ID, and only after all of that will then a permit be granted. Under Measure 114, it will generally be unlawful for you to buy, sell, or transfer any firearms without first also running a background check on that transfer. The second significant thing that the measure did is it created a ban on the sale, purchase, transfer, and possession of any so-called large capacity magazine. This measure creates a future ban on the sale, of the transfer, of the possession of so-called large capacity magazines. It does have a grandfather mechanism in it, and so you can maintain the possession of grandfather magazines that you purchased, had in your possession before the effective date of the law, but there are also some restrictions on how those grandfather magazines can actually be used, and so they can be possessed, they can be maintained, those grandfather magazines, but they can only be used in limited situations. Now, one of the major issues with Measure 114 and the permitting scheme was that if it went into effect on December 8th, which was the original deadline, it would have been next to impossible to actually get that permit. In fact, the Attorney General of the state of Oregon sent out a letter and it conceded to all the courts that the state of Oregon would not be able to properly implement this permitting scheme. That then led to a federal court judge putting a temporary halt on the permitting scheme from essentially going into effect for at least 30 days. But then you had the Harney County Circuit Court Judge Robert Rashio in this Arnold case grant an outright TRO because he found that the permitting scheme could not be implemented like the Attorney General conceded, and therefore he granted a TRO on the permitting scheme and also the magazine ban. He then granted a preliminary injunction against the magazine ban, finding that it was a clear violation of the Second Amendment and also the Supreme Court's recent ruling and decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. However, the state of Oregon was still trying to get aspects of Measure 114 put into effect even after that TRO and preliminary injunction. They sought for the judge to lift the TRO on one of the aspects, which was the background check portion of Measure 114. But Judge Rashio once again denied that request because he found that the background checks requirement in that law is critically linked to the permit to purchase language, and therefore it would be next to impossible to allow the background check language to go into effect without first also allowing the permit to purchase language to go into effect as well. So he just found there was no way to allow the background check without also allowing the permit to purchase, and therefore he denied that state's request. So in the Arnold case, Judge Robert Roscio issued a TRO, which is currently halting the permit to purchase law from going into effect. He has the TRO in place until the state of Oregon can essentially prove to him that they have a process in place to actually issue those permits. Once the state can prove that to him, he and the court will then actually have a preliminary injunction hearing. One will take place to determine whether or not the permit to purchase language and law will be allowed to go into effect, or if he will grant a preliminary injunction also against the permit to purchase. The judge also granted a preliminary injunction, which is currently halting the magazine ban from taking effect, and that preliminary injunction is in place until this case is actually resolved at a full trial. But the state of Oregon, again, did not want that to happen. So then they asked the state Supreme Court to issue a writ of mandamus, directing the trial court here, Judge Robert Roscio, to vacate his TRO and also his preliminary injunction. Ultimately, if that happened, then Measure 114 would be allowed to go into effect. Well, the Oregon State Supreme Court just issued their order, and they in fact denied that state request. In the order, the state Supreme Court stated, "After considering the current procedural posture of the underlying action, we decline to issue a writ. We emphasize that our decision has no bearing on the parties' respective positions as to any aspect of the underlying proceeding, including the merits of plaintiff's complaint." They go on to state that, at this juncture, and given our understanding that the trial court is proceeding as expeditiously as possible to resolve the issue that the parties have presented, we have determined that we should decline to exercise our mandamus discretion at this time. We recognize that the legal status of Measure 114 is of significant concern to many Oregonians. Of course, it is the role of the judicial branch of government to resolve disputes such as challenges to laws enacted by the legislative branch, which includes the people's exercising their initiative power. That resolution is underway in the trial court. Our only determination today is that now is not an appropriate time to exercise our authority in mandamus in connection with the trial court's temporary and preliminary rulings. Therefore, they ordered the petition for writ of mandamus is denied without prejudice. So that is a very positive sign. Twice now, the state of Oregon has tried to get the state Supreme Court to intervene in this case when they get a ruling that the state does not like. And twice now, the state Supreme Court has in fact denied that request. Here, the Supreme Court is saying that they simply will not get involved in this case as of right now. They argued and they put forward that the trial court is moving fast on this case, is trying to resolve these issues as fast as possible, and is acting not outside of its discretion. So for now, the TRO on the permit to purchase remains in place, and also the preliminary injunction on the magazine ban will also remain in place, and the state Supreme Court is not going to get involved in this issue. They're going to let this play out at the trial court level, and all indications are that Judge Robert Roscio agrees that this law, this Measure 114, is in fact a violation of the Constitution and of Second Amendment rights. So that is where Oregon Measure 114 currently stands. This is another positive sign. It's a win, and it's showing that this case is actually heading in the right direction. If anything else develops, of course, I will let you all know. Also, if you like this video and you would like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. It adds fuel to his jet and signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of two-way news. As always, I want to thank everybody who likes, comments, subscribes, who hits the notification bell, who shares these videos. You guys are directly impacting these videos, impacting this channel, and helping me to reach and educate more people than I could ever do on my own. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.